Welcome to another broadcast of Habits and Money. Today, again, I have a very dynamic personality in studio, and her name is Debbie Bryant.
Elevate your business with 10x Branding and Marketing LLC. Our expert team specializes in enhancing your brand's visibility and connecting you with your ideal clients. We employ strategies that increase reach, leaving a lasting impact and driving client conversion. Trust and credibility are vital in businesses and excel in building them even with a limited budget. Our cost-effective approaches ensure you get the best results without overspending. Ready to boost your business cash flow? Contact us at 332-235-T99 and let 10x Branding and Marketing LLC guide you to success. Our focus is on elevating your visibility, which directly translates to growth. Experience the power of effective branding and marketing with us and witness your business thrive.
In the event that you're wondering who is Debbie Bryant, well, Debbie Bryant is very outstanding. One, she is a TEDx talker, speaker. She is a public speaker and storyteller, and she owns her own business. She has leveraged her skill set as a public speaker to start the Speakers Academy. So today we'll talk a lot about the Speakers Academy and how the Speakers Academy can set you up for success. Some of her key focus is to really help you who want to be public speaker to become masters at the keynote presentation and to have the confidence to be able to deliver yourself. But there's much more in association with Debbie. Debbie is also an experienced speaker. She has spoke at the House of Lords, and that's no easy accomplishment. She is also really interfaced with the International Women's Day. She have done presentation there, and she's also spoke at the United Nations Women's Initiative, and so much more. So today I'm really excited to introduce Debbie to join us on stage as we do that deep dive into what Debbie does and how it can really help you in business and in life. Debbie, I must say it's a tremendous pleasure to have you today.
Hi, Gary. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Okay. Well, I looked at your record and you have such an impeccable, outstanding string of success behind you.
Thank you. I've been quite busy.
I can see that. What I see from everything is that you have this tremendous passion for public speaking.
Yes.
What inspired you to become a public speaker?
It's quite funny actually, because not very many years ago, I couldn't speak. I was asked to speak by a coach at an event that I was at. I'd been there for 2 days, and there was two people that were so, at the time, I thought impressive. I, in my head, just thought, who's going to listen to Debbie from Swindon? And I actually turned him down. That was somebody who was going to make me a speaker. So I had massive imposter syndrome of like, who's going to listen to me? I used to blush. I used to run out of breath. And so I just suddenly thought, I need to conquer that, and I need to get up there and speak, because I watched all these speakers getting up there and spreading the word. And I could speak in a very corporate environment, but speaking about myself and my story was something that I really, really shied away from. But when I did, it was life-changing. And I think that's where the passion comes from, actually being very honest in what I'm speaking about. I'm not speaking and selling from the stage, which I see a lot of coaches do in the run to the back of the room. I'm actually very anti that. And I think that's where my passion comes from, because I want you to be able to tell your story. Everybody has a story. To be able to tell your story to inspire people to work with you.
Interesting. What I've also seen is that you're a TEDx speaker.
Yes.
Can you help us to understand what that experience was like? What does it really take to prepare to get on TEDx, where you have millions of people from around the world who are going to be listening to your content, who's going to be responding to your content? What does it really take to prepare to present? What was that experience like for you?
It was quite scary. I mean, the YouTube channel has got 42 million subscribers. So, you're going out to a fairly big audience. But honestly, probably the best 15 minutes of my life. Don't tell my husband that. He's not listening, hopefully. But that 15 minutes was it was a combination of stopping myself and being the best kept secret. And I see a lot of people that are the best kept secret. You're actually brilliant at what you do, but you just hide behind other people. And so the TEDx was about me stopping myself being that best kept secret. I appeared on lots of podcasts last year. I was nominated for awards. I won some awards. I was in a couple of books, and none of it, even though I'd spoken in Columbia. I'd spoken at Oxford University, spoken at Cambridge. It was only when I did the TED that I felt like could call myself a speaker, the TEDx rather, and that was just phenomenal. You know, I was very lucky. I applied for it. The theme was Rising Phoenix, so it was like rising from the ashes, and I told a story which is my life. Incidentally, my number one tip for this interview is that when you are telling a story that is about you, only you know if you mess it up. So to take your nerves away, you know, be honest and be very transparent about it, because I did make mistakes in my TED, but they didn't matter because no one else knew that they were mistakes.
Exactly.
I was the only person who knew that. I missed half that out. But also the difference that the TED maker is like a blue tick. So if I go back 2 years ago, I set myself this challenge to have a TEDx and never really thought that I could possibly do it in the time that I did. Everybody was like, oh, yeah, you're going to get a TEDx, but really thinking she's just off her rocker. You know, that's not going to happen to you, Debbie from Swindon. And so I, bit by bit, built my confidence up. I met somebody who said, go out and tell your story rather than go and telling a business story, because who wants to listen to business stories realistically? And that changed my life. It changed my life from when I was talking about something that I'd personally achieved, that I thought I just did what everybody else would do, but apparently I didn't do what other people would do. So, for example, I was told that I'd be in a wheelchair at 55, and that's the year that I cycled in India. I signed up on a, you use it before you lose it type thing, and I cycled 370 kilometers in India in the same year that I should have been in a wheelchair. And so that's one of the things I talk about, is that get back up, that resilience thing, to inspire other people so that they can see that actually there is an option for them, that they don't have to accept the worst case scenario.
So that tells me, that tells me you have tremendous belief in yourself, and you have a certain way of thinking that you want to conquer the art. I love that. Debbie, I see that you have accomplished a whole lot as a public speaker. You know, I really want to say that I really admire how much you have achieved against all odds. You know, they predicted that you would not have been able to walk, you're going to be in a wheelchair. So much was predicted, but you have defied all of those odds. Today, you have built a pretty successful career as a public speaker, having spoken at the House of Lords and so many other platforms. You talk about storytelling. How important is storytelling to the craft of public speaking? Can you really help us to understand storytelling in the context of how it can really add flavor and the punch to your speaking?
In terms of, stories sell. You know, we have only got to look at the newspaper, look at the media, look at TV, look at what you're watching on your phone. Even if you're looking at TikTok, you're looking at as story. So it's about capturing. So there was a point where I had a marketing company, so a digital marketing company, and so I would write ads. And so I suppose that's a little bit of where my storytelling came from, in that you need a hook, then you introduce yourself, then the body, and then what do I want somebody to do? So storytelling is a little bit like that, really. You have to interest people, you have to get their attention. We live in the fastest world at the moment, and it's very hard to get any attention. So you need to have a little bit in your story that is what we call an interrupt, to grab people's attention. So I engage people straight away. I'm like, who here has been told that something's impossible? And then tell me if you've been told that was impossible by your friends, family, and your peers. And so I'm straight away asking people to interact with me, because that's part of my story, is that I don't believe that impossible exists. I believe that anything's possible, and if you want it hard enough, you will go and find it. That's kind of the beginning of my TED talk, and that's the beginning of some of my talks. In terms of storytelling, it's, the world wants to be entertained. I don't want to hear. I think I saw somewhere the other day that said if you give people facts, they don't retain them. TED is all about, you can only learn 3 things in that period of time, and after that your brain switches off. So I see speakers going out with PowerPoint presentations. That's a great one. With a PowerPoint presentation, who do you want them to look at? You or the slides? Because we can only concentrate on one thing. So if you've got lots on your slides and I'm reading your slides, I'm not listening to you. If you've got very little, my only slides are photographs, to be honest, and they're photographs of India so that you can visualize my part of that story. And the other is that, if you tell a story and you take people on a journey, you move them, you move people, and it can be very simple. One of the tactics that I teach would be, look at me now, I'm a TED speaker, I spoke at the House of Lords, I've got books, I've got awards, I've got magazine covers, I've got a massive keynote speech next month. But it wasn't always like that. It used to be that I was Debbie from Swindon, who stuttered, was tongue-tied, went bright red, would talk in one breath so that by the time I finished speaking, I was nearly falling over. And then I would talk about that journey from there to where I am now. That's a really simple structure that I teach, and that's anybody can do that. And that's in 3 parts. So it's the simplest way to do it. There's lots of different structures, but if you want to do something simple, if you can do that structure, this is me now, this is where I used to be, and this is how I got in between. And if you are selling, and this is how I can help you to do that, then that's so simple. It's so simple, but it's entertaining. So if I give you lots of facts, you're not going to retain them. It's proven that if I tell you a story with those facts in, you retain the information by something like 1800%. So it's a ridiculous amount that you retain it by. Let's just say by 200% that you retain this information, and you'll go away and know parts of that story. I know that because people come up to me that have seen my TED talk and they go, I really loved that bit, or I loved, I cycled around in see-through shorts accidentally, but I made some clothing mistakes, but I bring that into the TED talk because it shows I'm a human being. And people come and tell me about that, or they come and tell me, they say to me, I felt like I was sitting in an armchair and that you were talking to me. And so that's what happens when someone tells a story. So I've worked in environments where you've had somebody on that stage speaking and selling and doing the run to the back, I've got 5 spaces, take your credit card, do that type of thing. And I like to think that, the world is a little bit sophisticated now. We're not all just going to sit there and run and be like sheep. So actually, I want to be the honey and not be the bee. And I want to teach you to be the honey and not be the bee. We want to sit and be the honey and not the person who's busy and around.
Well, I like all that you have said. The ability to tell a story, it is not something that comes natural. What I've seen is that it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of intention. It takes a lot of crafting. It takes a lot of you being comfortable in your skin to be able to do all of that. So I must say that I really admire what you do, because what I've seen you have done, you've taken all of this experience that you have gained over many years, and you have now condensed it into your academy. You've started a business that is called DB22.
22 Speaker Academy, yeah.
Speakers Academy. Talk to us a little bit about the Speakers Academy.
Okay.
And
so I've actually been coaching business or business owners or franchisees and other hairdressing salon probably for like 25 years. I came from a call center 25 years ago that needed on the floor training. And so that's what I was tasked to do. And then the company got taken over and I went into different companies. But I've worked with businesses and stuff for a long time. It's only really since and again, that comes back to being the best kept secret, because when you work with a business, you're supporting a business owner. So you're very much like a politician's wife. You're in the background, you're fixing that business. They do fantastic. And you actually manage yourself out of a job because they don't need you anymore because you fixed the problem they had, and then you're going to find something else. But it's quite tricky because nobody really knows what you did unless you're going to give personal details. Somewhere along the line, I just decided that actually that wasn't where I wanted to go. I'd had a car accident 13 years ago, and kind of fell into that role after I no longer could do my hairdressing, no longer, COVID put paid to my marketing agency because I was all live venues. And I just got to about 2 years ago and just thought, this is not quite where I want to be. I was too available. I'd kind of sold my soul realistically of doing lots of, I was doing everything that the coaches want to do at 10K, 12K, whatever was the proof of success. But actually it wasn't a good lifestyle. I was really great to my clients, but actually really mean to myself. And I remember being in Jamaica and a client saying to me, hey, you're just not available enough. And I was on the phone to her in the hotel in Jamaica for the 3rd time. And I was walking around in bikinis and I was doing a business call and I was like, blowing my mind, like literally blew my own mind. So from there, I kind of was like, okay, what can I do instead? How can I make my lifestyle be better? And how can I attract people as opposed to having to chase after people and give everything that I needed to? And it took me a while. And then eventually I was like, I'm just going to start speaking about what I have done. I'm not going to go and compete with everybody that's in business. I'm going to talk about making the best of yourself and actually my story of resilience of like, I had an accident. They told me that I would lose the use of my leg. And I said no. And I just thought everybody else would say that. But actually, it turns out everyone wouldn't say that. They would just say yes straight away. And I said no 4 times until they gave me another solution. Then I did my physio and didn't walk for 6 months. I was running a hairdressing salon and not able to walk for 6 months, not able to put my foot on the ground, which is like quite tricky. So that people then started to say, well, what you've done this. And I suppose I signed up for the bike ride and I started talking about this because people said they wanted to sponsor me. And all of a sudden it started happening. People were interested in what I had to say. people were telling me it was an amazing story, and I was just shocked. I thought I'd actually been told it was quite a boring story by somebody who was a speaker coach, but that was my delivery. I had to stop living it. There's different things. All of a sudden, I'm out there and I'm speaking and I'm telling this story, and people are calling me up and saying, "Hey, can you come and speak here? Can you go on my podcast? Can you come to America? Can you speak at the House of Lords?" And so it just kind of ran away with itself, really. And so I became more confident to go, actually, I had a friend. So actually, I'm telling this story and it's not boring. And it's changing people's lives, which I never thought it would. And I stopped talking about business because there's a million people out there talking about business. I'm talking about changing your life and standing up for yourself and being resilient enough to cope with everything that the world throws at you and still go on and do what it is you want to do. So as a consequence of that, when I announced that I'd got the TED, which I was really quiet about when I applied for, and I got an email to say that I'd got this interview for a TED Talk on one of the worst days of my life. My mum was in hospital. She'd lost her mind, and it was just a terrible day. And I got that, and I was just like so excited. And then people wanted to know how I did it. I said, okay, let me show you how I did it, because I didn't do it the traditional way. I didn't do it okay, you want to be a speaker, walk over here and raise your arm, walk over here, raise your arm, walk to the front, do that. Or, there's a whole methodology that a lot of the speakers that are selling from the stage want to do. And I very much am like, that's not what you need to do. You need to have people to understand your story, know, like, and trust you, and then they're going to want to work with you, or they're not going to work with you. I'm old enough and wise enough to realize that you can't catch every fish, and that's where the Speaker Academy came from. Is that the people who are interested in speaking, whether they go to a networking meeting and they're terrified when they've got to do their 60 seconds, or they want to do a TED, or they don't understand how to speak and how to stop. So I was at an event the other week, and people said their bit and then they went on like another 3 times to do it, and so the power was gone. I teach people how to do a TED style talk, which is 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
And
let's talk about this. I want us to go deep into that a little bit. So you have been in business for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have started DB22 Speaker Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Let us talk about some of the activities provided by DB22 Speakers Academy. What I see that you do, you provide training in keynote speaking. What you also do, you nurture speakers to be not just speakers, but to present themselves with confidence.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about these activities that your company is actually involved with.
Okay, so I have two ways that you can work within the Speaker Academy. One is a membership, so it's a monthly membership and it's a group coaching, and it's fantastic. What we do is we have a private WhatsApp group so that everyone can ask questions and tell us what they're achieving. We have 2 sessions a month where I go through the structure of speaking and we break it down and actually do. So I teach and then they do. So if I say, right, the first bit, here I am now, we're going through that in the session. We also have a virtual stage. So one of the things that happened to me is when I first started speaking, I got screamed at. I had a speaker coach that would scream at me when it would go wrong in front of a room full of people. And I don't make the same mistake twice. If they told me it was wrong, then I would take that it was wrong. But I just feel like maybe there's a nicer way for people to practice their speaking. So we have a virtual stage where each once a month you can come onto the virtual stage on a Zoom and you can tell your story. And then the rest of the team will say, score it 1 to 5. Do you understand what it was? Was there a beginning, a middle, and an end? Was it clear what it is that you were trying to talk about, and how was there a conclusion? So it's a nice, safe environment to be able to do that. But also, any opportunities that I get given are free. So if someone's got a free podcast, then I will open it up to the group and say, do you want to do this? But that's a group. And actually, we're starting this week. We're starting a live challenge in my Facebook group where I'm challenging them to go live in the Facebook group just for 30 to 60 seconds. I'll give them the headlines. So I'll give them a choice of headlines. For example, my favorite podcast is, and the reason it's my favorite podcast is because of this. So I'm challenging them to actually come out and speak and actually do that in a private group that's got 300 people in it. Just do it 3 times. programs. This week is awareness. Next week will be something different, something different. All of my clients are challenged to do this, whether they're in the group or whether they're one-to-one, because I care very much about people's results. There's no point in me speaking to people and saying, here's the opportunities, and then not helping them, coaching them to actually get out there and speak to people. So that's the one thing I do. Then on my one-to-one coaching, I do
What I love about what you just said is that your program is not just focusing on the theory of public speaking. You're focusing on getting them into the practice.
Absolutely. Because, there's so many programs out there where, you're told to do something, or you've got to go and watch a video, and then nothing happens. And I have given some of the group opportunities, and some of them are flying, and some of them are a bit shy, and some of them are a bit like, I don't know how to do the tech. I don't know how to go live. I don't know how to do a video. And so those things come up as we go along. And I think, okay, well then let me do a video that shows you how to do that. And then they can learn, they can come on and do a live. So I just think it's so important for people to get out there. The biggest fear of speaking is your first one. So if you do a live for 30 to 60 seconds in a group that's got 300 people in there, chances are no one's going to see it. And if they do see it, you're gone.
Can we look at two cases?
Yeah.
Coming from your experience, let us say that in one case you have someone who's charismatic and they grab the information very fast. How long does your program really get that person to become, a good public speaker? On the other hand, you did mention that there's some people that may come to you that may be shy and don't have the experience, nervous about speaking. And with your program, what timeline it would take to really work with them and get them to that point where they have some degree of proficiency in terms of speaking? So
with both of those people, they will struggle to put it into the 15-minute TED style. So I see people who are super confident for speaking. I was at an event literally 2 weeks ago, and there were 4 speakers there, very, very confident, but they went on. So one of them was like, I've got 3 things that you're going to learn, did the 3 things, should have finished, didn't, then did an acronym of like what these initials mean, then went on to another section that was like, so I've just got 10 things for you to remember. We were drowning. But that's a very confident speaker. So reining that person back and saying, you need to actually bring this down into 15 minutes. That's hard. 45 minutes for a keynote is a luxury. So if I get that person, and then if I've got the person who is very, very shy, it's really about finding out what their story is. Remember, I said to you, if you're telling your truth, only you know if it goes wrong. And if it does, nobody else in the room knows that you've made a mistake. There's a confidence in that. And so for my shyer speakers, I would probably work with them for 3 to 6 months. For the other speakers, same really, 3 to 6 months. I mean, the program rolls. So the group program, there is no, it rolls each month. There's no contracts. You can come in, and if you think that I'm giving value, which I really try to give a lot of value, then you stay. And if not, I'm not about tying people in. Again, being the honey, not the bee. We will have an award ceremony in January, February next year, a live award ceremony, and the people that are in the group that will nominate each other, and we'll have a stage, and they'll get up and they'll speak on the stage, and they'll have an opportunity to do that. My one-to-one clients the same. Some of my one-to-one clients I've put forward for TED Talks. Now, you can't guarantee anybody a TED Talk, but I've helped them with their application and been very successful in actually getting people through to their first interview and just finding out the different TEDs. And I'm actually looking at getting a TED license myself so that I can run TED Talks myself and be able to give back that way. So something that's in the pipeline. But in terms of being able to speak, when you're first speaking, if you're invited to speak, House of Lords, I had 10 minutes, hard 10 minutes. It wasn't 10 minutes plus, it was 10 minutes because there was other speakers to come on. So all of a sudden I'm faced with a TED Talk that's 15 minutes. On the rehearsal day was 18 minutes because I went over and had to reduce it, and then looked at my thing and thought, gosh, I've missed out so much. What else can I take out? So then having to, when my TED went live, to being asked to speak at the House of Lords, like, would I mind speaking at the House of Lords was how they put it. I was like, oh my God, I'm there. I said, I'll check my diary and then I'll come back to you. But in my heart, I was like, I'm there. That was a hard 10 minutes because, the worst thing a speaker can do is go over as such. Yeah. So it's like, how can I keep power of that story in a small amount of time?
we're going to speak very shortly about what that experience was like for you to be a speaker at the House of Lords.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk a little bit more about your business and some of the essential takeaway. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. What I've seen to be a really good speaker, you need to have traits at two different levels.
Mhm.
Some of the traits, you may be able to see them physically. For example, you must dress right. You must project confidence. You must be able to use vocal variety as you speak. But those are some of the things that you can, experience. But I do believe that there's another side to good public speaking very often we don't hear about. Because what I've seen is that speaking, while it's all about you, it's really not necessarily about you. It's about you knowing how to connect with the listener. It's about you knowing if your story is going to resonate. And I think knowing if the story is going to resonate, it brings into some traits like your ability to research your audience, your ability to know your audience. And because it is researching and knowing your audience really helps you to build your storyline and stand a better chance to connect with the audience. How much of all of that is relevant from your standpoint?
100%. It has to be relevant. So for my TEDx talk was at a university, and it was at a university in Canada. So when I applied, I thought Western New London meant London, and it was Western New London, Ontario. So maybe do my geography a little bit better in future. But I was like, I've got a yes, and so I'm going. And then I think, okay, I'm talking to university students, so I have to bring my relevances down to what a university student and that age group is going to understand. So for example, we had part of the story is of how I had my accident, and we'd bought a cheap car from eBay, and in the UK it'd be called an old banger, right? An old banger or a jalopy, but it doesn't mean that in Canada. In Canada, they would call a cheap car a lemon. So I had to go, okay, talk about, you'd call it a lemon, I'd call it an old banger. So that had some relevancy in both places, because then they could understand what I'm talking about. If I just said an old banger, things like dual carriageway, I had to kind of say it's a 2-lane motor, like a 2-lane road, it's quite fast. So you have to be descriptive in things that some people in the audience will get hung up on what you're describing. If they don't understand it, they can't get past that, and they'll hear nothing else afterwards. Mm-hmm. And it just does. I do it myself. I was at a theatre, and it was watching a dancing show called Strictly, and somebody had dropped a notebook on the stage, and I focused on that notebook. I was like, somebody picked the notebook up, I can't concentrate. And then they just went, we'll take the notebook with us. And I was like, thank goodness. But it bothered me, so I got hung up on that. I sometimes have that tendency. So when I went to the House of Lords, I was talking to millionaire care home workers, so people who had care.
Before we go into the House Alerts, we come in there, the very next question. You mentioned something, and I just want us to amplify it and expand on this a little bit. You said, as you speak to an audience, you need to be descriptive. And I find that statement to be so profound. You see, a painter can use the paintbrush, and he can use paint, and he can tell a story. But a speaker, you don't have that luxury. As a speaker, you have to be descriptive with words. You have to be able to use words to paint your picture. So I really, really love that point that you have said, and I just want to emphasize that a little bit.
Oh, 100%. You have to make them be there in the story. I'm a big fiction reader, so I get really involved in books. I can't read business books to listen to those, but in terms of reading, it's a luxury for me. So I guess maybe it comes from the fact that I read stories. And I just think, I know at one point I worked in travel, and so I would be able to sell travel by describing where they are. So, the beach is just over the road. You've got, a beachfront rooms. When you wake up in the morning, you can go out on your balcony. There's bars just down the road. The sea is really shallow, so if you're taking the children. So those people could picture themselves there. That when I talk about selling, that's what I talk about selling. I'm not saying it's got 20 floors and there's a lift and there's no one cares about that bit. So no one cares. So in mine, the only slides that I use for my talks, if I'm doing that particular one, are pictures of India. So when I start to talk about India, behind me, you will see images that were taken on the trip, because I don't have enough time to describe India to people. And so as I'm telling them about my cycling through India and getting chased by boys because my shorts rolled down and them all taking pictures, it's a long story, watch the TED Talk. But I got chased by these 10-year-old boys because my shorts rolled down, and obviously they'd never seen a white belly before, and so they chase me with their cameras. I'm a TikTok sensation somewhere. So you can visualize that. You can picture it. Everybody took, we were so blessed when we went for India. Everybody came out of their houses and cheered and clapped and took pictures. Every 370 kilometers, people coming out and cheer. Some of the smaller children that were like 3-4 years old had never seen women cycling with an empty bus behind them. I think they found that was a little bit baffling, of like, why don't you all just get on the bus instead of cycling along? And so they would just burst out in laughter, like literally would just stand there giggling and taking pictures and stuff. And it was so lovely. So I can tell you about the time that I shouted passing camel as we overtook a camel, and the whole thing went passing camel, passing camel. If I show you a picture of the camel, and I show you a picture of the lady in the field, and I show you a picture of the woman I'm puffing going up a hill, she's walking over and she's barefoot in a beautiful sari with 5 drainage pipes on her head. And I'm thinking, Deb, suck it up. Like you chose to do this. That's her life. So if I show you those images with no words, then you can be on my ride with me. So you can visualize what I'm seeing. And so that's the only time that I would use the slides, is to give that type of power, to kind of put you in that position. And then I normally finish it and say, cycled the ride, brilliant, achieved something. And just to let you know, that year I was 55, and that's when I should have been in the wheelchair. So that gets me a big whoop at the end.
Okay.
Elevate your business with 10x Branding and Marketing LLC. Our expert team specializes in enhancing your brand's visibility and connecting you with your ideal clients. We employ strategies that increase reach, leaving a lasting impact and driving client conversion. Trust and credibility are vital in businesses, and excel in building them even with a limited budget. Our cost-effective approaches ensure you get the best results without overspending. Ready to boost your business cash flow? Contact us at 332-235-T99 and let 10x Branding and Marketing LLC guide you to success. Our focus is on elevating your visibility, which directly translates to growth. Experience the power of effective branding and marketing with us, and witness your business thrive.
I now want to come to a point of your life where you have accomplished a major milestone. To have spoken at the House of Lords is no easy accomplishment. I want you to talk to us about what that experience was like for you, what that field was like for you. How did it impact your career as a speaker?
Oh, it was just it's such an honor, to go to the House of Lords. There are not many people, most people know what a TEDx, but some people don't know what a TEDx talk is. And so when I went there and I spoke, and there was an award ceremony, and one thing I did there on the relevancy, which is what I was going to go thing, is that, as I said, there were people most of the audience people who owned care homes, and it was an awards thing for the thing. I reached on the NHS, so there was a comment, and I didn't expect it, but now I understand it better. Was that I said, I was in hospital. I said I was treated so well in the hospital, and the staff were amazing. The room warmed massively because I was thanking people that they'd obviously worked with in care and support and stuff like that, and it lifted the room to people being on my side. And I only had 10 minutes in the House of Lords, so it was insane. You've got to go take ID, you need a passport, you've got to go through all the security to get in there, and putting that on my CV opened so many more doors. But the TEDx opened so many more doors for you. Everything that's come since then, it's almost like when you used to get a blue tick on Instagram and that verified you. That's what that talk did to me, was literally putting me on the map and giving me the confidence to go out there and say, hey, let me speak on your stage. Let me do this. Do you want me to come to your conference? I think I'm speaking in front of at Truro College, which is the biggest employer in Cornwall, with a new coalition between business owners and academia, and I'm leading the keynote in a couple of weeks' time. None of that would have happened had I not had those places that I spoke that were eloquent. I spoke at Columbia University in New York last year. Didn't really make any difference. So it's about picking it, and then about those opportunities. I'm a massive networker in terms of I like to go meet people, see people, talk to people. And I think the House of Lords came from that, but it also came from me being honest about what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to sell to you. You can't get into the House of Lords if you've got an agenda where you're trying to get people to get their credit cards out and sell. There's two different types of speaking. There's selling, where you stand on that stage and you speak and you get some genius offer that's going to change somebody's life, and they have to run to the back of the room. Been in that industry, and it's not an industry that I would like to teach. there's a lot of people doing it, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say mistrust, but there's a lot of people who maybe like over embellish is probably the word I say. So over embellish some of the
But
numbers and some of the things that you can achieve. I'm very much like, this is me, this is my story. If you'd like me to get your story out of you, because you have one, you have one, Gary, everyone has a story that you can then tell and help people with, that's where I come in.
I love that. What I love about what you're saying is the fact that I think today, as persons are trained to be speakers, they are trained to be salespersons. And I think the method that is used is what we call the push factor. So you come across as being very pushy. We talk a lot about what we call the pull factors. The pull factors allows you to sell without selling, because at the end of the day, as you present your value offer, guess what? People buy into your value offer. And before you say buy me, they're asking you, how can I become a beneficiary?
And that's exactly what works. And then people refer you as well, because they trust that you're not going to go in and rip anybody off. I think it's know, like, and trust. People buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So yes, I'm going to tell you that I bought a pair of shorts that were absolutely the wrong shorts, but I cycled for hundreds of miles in them. And my friend said to me they were a little bit see-through, and I looked in the mirror and they looked okay. I've since learned that when you lean forward, they are more see-through. And I was just cared about the padding. And it wasn't until a couple of months later that I went to buy my stuff in India, I understood that they were padded ladies cycling shorts, that they were padded ladies underwear. And I didn't know that the two things existed. So I've been cycling in underwear for months and months all around the Cotswolds. But I'm going to share that with you because I'm just a normal person. I'm going to share it with you because I'm going to go, look, I make mistakes. I did cycle around India. I'm not an athlete. I didn't even know how to change gear, let alone put a chain on the bike. I just thought, right, let's just have a go. And my chain came off. Another cyclist showed me, and my friend said to me, what's wrong with your legs? Why are they spinning around? And I said to her, and then she said, you're not using the gears properly. She had to teach me at the age of 54 how to use the gears on my bike, because I was only using half of them. It was much harder than I needed to be. But I want you to, okay, she's just like me, so she can do it, then I can do it, because I believe that.
Right. I agree. Great points. What I also like about you, Debbie, is that you have a different way of thinking, and you have a quote that says, the impossible is possible. And it's not everyone think this way. There are a lot of people that believe that certain things they cannot achieve it, but that's not your way of thinking.
No, that's not my.
Help us to understand what shaped that way of thinking for you.
So I just learned this a couple of years ago, because I'm very much, no doesn't mean no. It just means I need to go and ask another person, or I'm looking at it the wrong way. There's a yes there somewhere. I just need to find this yes. Whether it's if I'm working with somebody and I go, okay, the deal's not quite right, what would be the right fit for you? So I'm very, I also think if you think something is impossible, it's not. It is, my TED talk is called Impossible to I Am Possible. One, for example, I had my accident and they said, we can operate on your leg. And I thought it was just bruised, and I didn't understand a broken leg at that stage. And they said, but you won't be able to use your leg. And I said, no, I have a hairdressing salon in a gym. I have children. I need to be able to use my leg. That's not the right answer. So just my head just rejected the answer, and rejected it 4 times until they come back with a better solution, which in the end was much more than I thought it was. But when I was driving around a couple of years ago, I realised that when I was a child, my dad said no to everything. He was so strict. Like, he was, whatever we want to do, school disco, no. And then eventually my mum would work him around, and 2 weeks later, this pretty little dress would appear on the bed, and me and my sister would go to the disco. So I just realised, actually, I don't need to ask him. I need to just go and ask her, and then she'd get me my yes. And so I think for the whole of my life, and she did. She got me the yes when I wanted a yes. I just knew that was the person to ask, and that he wasn't the person to ask. Still isn't, right? Still isn't the person to ask. So I think I took that into my life to go, this surgeon that's there telling me this terrible solution they've got, and I'm like, you're just obviously not the right person for me. Go back and ask someone else and see if there's something better, which they did. And they come back in the afternoon and said, well, you're going to be able to stand on the leg, you're not going to be able to bend it. And I said, could I do my job? I have a hairdressing salon, can I? And they said, no, I don't think so, it's not going to happen. I said, okay, that's not the answer then. And they went away, and I didn't even know that they would go away. I didn't know that there was a choice. Just my shock, I think, just went, no, that's not right, that can't be. I just bought a car, now you're telling me that I'm not going to be able to walk. It just doesn't fit together. Eventually, they came back and said, right, we're going to take this bone out of your hip and we're going to build a little saucer and we're going to put the other bones in, put them together and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to dig deep into your hip and get the bone marrow. And I was like, okay, I am not a boiled egg. Do that. That sounds fine. And then I wake up a couple of days later with a cage on my leg, 2 plates and 22 screws. And I thought it was bruised. And so I was like, okay, so now we need to just get better. But if I take you back to the actual accident, the accident was this car broke down that we just bought. I broke down in the car. My husband went to get some fuel and parked behind me and a car smashed into him. And I thought, okay, he looks okay. And then the car carried on coming and I was on a dual carriageway, it's just 2 lanes. And this car, I was just stood by the side of the car by the petrol cap and this car was coming for me. And I initially just thought, okay, I'm going to die and this is going to hurt. And then something in my head just went, no, I'm not going. I'm not leaving my boys. They're not ready to be left. They're not old enough to be left. And I took 2 steps and those 2 steps saved my life. Literally, the car hit me and then it hit me a second time and I landed on all 4s. And I could feel all the crunchy car bits. And when I looked up, I was in the lane of the dual carriageway. It knocked me into the road. And I thought, I'm going to have to save my life again and crawl to the side of the road. So lucky for me, somebody had slowed down and stopped the traffic behind him, as I would have been dead. So when I got to the hospital, I was the luckiest person in the world. I was very much the luckiest person in the world. That's how I felt. That's how I told people when they were wheeling me around and saying, poor you. And I was like, what are you talking about? I should be in the morgue. I'm the luckiest person in the world. And so I had that attitude from the start. And I stayed like that quite sickeningly for a year. I think my children at one point wanted to euthanize me because they were just like, shush, you're here, be quiet. I'd be like, Mother's Day, I shouldn't be here. But that's the attitude that I went into it with. And so that attitude stayed with me for a long time of like, that actually I was lucky.
I like that state of mind, and no, it's not no. It just perhaps means that you have to dig deeper.
Yeah.
And right persons and to get the answers that you want. And that's what you did, because today perhaps you might not have been walking,
No, I would, if I did, it scares me. God, if I just said yes the first time, I would have a leg that is locked straight. It would have been locked straight from the word go. So I wouldn't be able to bend it, wouldn't be able to do anything, couldn't drive a car or anything. And so that sometimes makes you think, oh, where did that come from? That kind of ballsiness, I suppose. And I genuinely don't know, because I didn't understand a broken leg. I thought a broken leg was like 6 weeks. People write stuff on your cast and it's all back to normal. So I wasn't even prepared for the level of recovery that I had to go through. But I did. And so I did everything that the physio told me. I cried. It was brutal, so painful to not be able to walk for 6 months and still run a hair salon and still have 3 children and still be in a gym where I didn't even fit into my own lifestyle. Like everybody around me. I mean, if you've ever been like in a gym environment, and these guys talk squat weights on a night out and do press ups when they get drunk, it's when you can't walk, really hard to kind of associate with them. So I had to kind of reinvent myself, and I reinvented myself as a business person.
Great. I want to talk a little bit now about habits. And of course, I'm going to talk a bit, shortly from now about your desire to travel the world as a public speaker. We'll talk about that. But let's talk a little bit about habits. What habits is necessary to influence success? Today, you're a successful speaker. You do your TEDx talk. You speak at a House of Learn. You work with hundreds of businesses, really helping them to get their speaking skills right, their keynote presentation right. You have a fair degree of success. What are the habits that influence
I think
success?
what changed everything for me was to learn to put my values first. So anybody I'm working with, my values and their ethics, and make sure that they match. So I'm results driven. I'm very honest. I'm very plain speaking. And if I find someone's trying to work with me that doesn't want to be honest or wants to tell a story that isn't really their story, then I won't work with them. So one of the first things for me is this person authentic, and do they know where they are right now? I can help somebody to find their way to where they are, but I don't write somebody off. But if they want to be dishonest, if they want to manipulate numbers and they want to exaggerate what they've been able to achieve and not be able to deliver it, then I'm not interested in working with those people. And that's stood me in good stead over the last couple of years. So that's my first one. And the other is to be vulnerable. The habits you have is to show vulnerability. I was so scared to be vulnerable. The whole Debbie from Swindon came from worrying about whatever people felt about me, worrying what my story was. And sometimes being a chameleon and changing into the person that you think everybody else wants you to be, just so that you fit in the room, that just becomes really uncomfortable after a long time. And that's where imposter syndrome starts to come. So you have to be vulnerable and you have to be honest, and you have to be able to, the third one is you have to be able to take action. The reason I'm doing a live challenge in my Facebook group is because I'm not talking to people twice a month and telling them what to do, and then they don't do it. They want to be speakers. So I've said to them, if you really are too shy, then do it in the WhatsApp group. Put it in the WhatsApp group. But you want to be speakers. So I'm giving you an opportunity to speak in a safe group, in a group that's, there's two different selling types, okay? If you go on the stage and you're selling, you want someone to run to the back of the room, you have a hostile audience sitting there because they're waiting for you to trick up. They're like, oh, not having my money, didn't even bring my credit card. Oh no, I'm not buying anything. I got you. You're a very hostile audience, okay? And that's hard because then you do have to become a very salesy person and mind map and seed plan and all of that stuff, which is really hard work and leaves people with a bit of a bad taste in their mouth once they worked it out. If you go onto a stage and you're not particularly sell it and you're going on and saying, hey, this is me, I make mistakes, I wear the wrong pants, I flash my belly, I take the wrong shoes, but I've still achieved this. Everybody in that audience wants you to do well. They are the kindest, nicest, motivated audience that you're ever going to get. Why would you ever want to go and speak in front of the other people when you can go in front and speak about people? And I learned this when I started speaking last year, is that when you've got an audience that wants you to do well, guess what happens? You do well.
Exactly.
It's not a habit. It's if you put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable, most people want you to do well. I've had the coach that screamed at me, and the only thing that the best advice that he did give me was because someone was trying to sell me speaker training at the time, but it was just very formulaic speaker training, and he said, you don't need that. You need to stop caring about the people in the room of who you're impressing and just get on and tell your story. And so now I do. It's not that I don't care about the people in the room, but I don't change myself. I will change my story. I'll change my points of reference, but I don't change myself. I sit in my own skin and I'm really comfortable in my own skin, and I don't pretend to be something that I'm not. And I think those habits, those that having your values, being honest and ethical, make you magnetic.
I like that. How would you define success? Today I see, many persons, they have different definitions of success. How would you define success?
Well, success will be when I'm speaking and traveling the world. That's one of my successes. But success is to be able to get up every single morning and love what you do. Be passionate. It's not a job. I want to be a speaker. I'm still coaching, so I'm kind of got a balance of the two going. And I have a single client that when I look at their name in my diary, that I think, oh, I don't want to do that. That's success to me. Success is that I've worked with. And I have met the most amazing people over the last 2 years. They're like incredible, mind-blowingly incredible. They've got these stories that I just want to get out. So to me, that is success. It's not standing on a stage 4 or 5 years ago and saying, hey, this on social media, or this can do, or do this, or buy this course. That's not success. And it wasn't my business, it was for somebody else's business. Success is for me to be able to stand out there and go, do you know what? I messed up, I fixed it, and then I messed up again. And then this time I fixed it for good. And I did something that pushed me out of my comfort zone. I learned how to cycle 50 miles for India. I never learned how to cycle 5 days in a road. I was terrified. I was terrified that I was coming back in a wheelchair. Like, absolutely the most scared I've ever been. I would, after day one, you're fine to do that, but then you have to get up and do 100k the next day. And what happens when your muscles are tired? And I learned 4 months after that I have no cartilage in my knee, that I'm literally bone on bone. So I shouldn't even be able to walk, let alone cycle, because I didn't know. So I just think if you're, and the value sounds so lame, right? But if you're ever doing something that doesn't sit right with your values, then you will get imposter syndrome, you'll get uncomfortable, you will be successful for a really short period of time, and then everything will just go wrong because there's nothing sitting there that's really you.
Gotcha. I do believe that you have a lot working for you at the moment. The next question I want to ask you is, what is your blueprint for success? Now, let me say what you have working for you. What I've learned very early in life is that the ability to speak clearly, communicate your information across the table is vital elements to have as part of your blueprint. And I do believe that you have that to your advantage. So what is your blueprint for success? Is it just leveraging your speaking skills, your communication skills, your ability to connect with people and build networks? Talk to us a little bit about your blueprint for success.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that speaking, like, stories sell. So I do believe my blueprint for success is that stories sell. The more people that I can share my story with, and I have other keynotes as well as the impossible one. I have ones on personality styles, how to, like, not be bullied in the workplace, and how to not be the best kept secret. So my blueprint is to have things that work for different people. Obviously, I'm trying to make people be speakers, but I'm making them storytelling speakers. So to me, it's about finding the people that have got the stories, helping them to craft the stories, and then making them successful, because that makes me successful. I'm happy with the results. I want to get onto bigger stages in different countries. I've set myself a challenge to speak in 101 countries. And the reason for that was to keep the focus. Was to keep the focus on speaking. Very easy to fall back into just coaching. The speaking is the harder gigs to get. So the blueprint is to do 50% of both. But again, I go back to being the honey and not being the bee. If I can speak on a stage and I can speak in front of business owners or entrepreneurs or mental health people that don't understand how to fight their own battles, if you like. I had to fight for my recovery. And then when I went to 3 surgeons and they said to me, yeah, great, you've done well and you're walking again now, but you're going to be in a wheelchair at 55. I had to fight that as well. And so for me, it's that impossible is for other people to understand that they can achieve anything that they really want to, if they really want to do it.
Can we talk a little bit more about the challenges? You're successful today and you have accomplished a lot. And I do believe that sometimes the average person from the outside looking in, they don't have a clue of your stepping stones, your pathway, your challenges that you had to overcome to be successful. Can we talk a little bit about, the challenges that you had to overcome to be where you are today? That story stands out. The doctor has written you off and said that you will not be able to walk for the rest of your life. And you just said, no, I'm not going to live with that. That's not a voice I want to hear talking to me. So you push beyond that. You accomplish something that was very unique. You maintain your balance to walk and do things. But what other challenges you had to overcome to be where you are today?
At that time, I still had a hairdressing salon. And obviously, I hadn't been able to walk for 6 months. I didn't know how I could manage a salon that I stood behind the chair. So the first thing that happened was that I had to work on the business instead of in the business. And my ego at the time was so massive. That's one of the biggest challenge. My ego was so huge. I was like, if these people don't get their hair cut by me, that's it. It's game over. I'm going to lose my business. Absolute rubbish. They just went to my other stylist. I never lost a single person. And we made more money in that first year than we did when I was stood behind the chair. So my ego took a bashing, but it gave me the opportunity to understand what the problems in my business were. For example, every hair salon is told you need a receptionist, and every hair salon owner will tell you they can't afford a receptionist. Okay, I started answering the phone in my own salon and would triple the cost of the booking that I'd made, because before I had an apprentice, a trainee, 17 years old, answering my phone, or somebody who was already doing a client going, oh, yeah, great, bye, like this. And then all of a sudden I'm answering the phone and saying, okay, yeah, I can fit you in. I thought you were due to have your colour or this. And they go, you're not going to be able to fit that in. And I say, yeah, I could. So all of a sudden I've tripled the booking from a £50 booking to a £150 booking. So then I started looking at the marketing of the business, and we grew the business. I took over a franchise that did teeth whitening, makeover photo studio, beauty. Ended up 2 years later with a spa that was 7,000 square feet. And in the first 8 months, we were turning over about 100,000 in this little salon. and we turned over 444,000. So that learning curve was steep in terms of what could be achieved if you're not the person who's sitting right behind that chair. If I was still hands-on, and then obviously along the wayside there, that's when they told me I'd be in a wheelchair. I ignored them. My body decided that you can carry on ignoring it, but it wasn't going to. And so then I had to become more hands-off and manage the businesses. Had other operations through that time, had to understand that what if I go back to being that person who can't walk for a year? So in the early days, it was that. And then I guess the business side of it, I started to love. And so I found all these other opportunities to, do the makeover photo shoots, to do plastic surgeons coming in and stuff like that, until I had to have another operation. And I was so terrified of how difficult it had been the first year that I sold it. And I'd got to a stage where my overheads were quite high. So I sold the business, took a year off, and then recovered within 6 weeks. And so I was like, gosh, now what do I do? I just tipped my life upside down for no reason. There was no 1 year recovery. It was a very easy recovery. Had a knee replacement on my other leg. So then I was like, what do I do now? And so then I got into marketing. So every time something's happened, I've had to pivot. And I've had to pivot and go, okay, I can't be a hairdresser. I'll be a salon owner. Salon owner is not really big enough. I'll be a spa owner. I'll go for the makeover photo shoots because they make good money. Okay, this is all too much. I'm running around too much. I'm having steroid injections in my legs. I'm having operations. Let's get rid of that. Live on the money. I'm bored. Marketing. Okay, so let's start doing the marketing. Got a contract for managing a hotel, did some menopause retreats, did the spas, did the other stuff. Then COVID came along and all my events shut. And I was like, okay, so now what do we do? And by that time I was actually working with this other coach and I was on the road training for them as well, teaching social media and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, what do I do? So first of all, that person's Facebook went down. So I built a call center for him. I built a call center in 2 weeks with a team of 12 people and we called the database. So did that for a little while. And then I started coaching people to say, okay, let me teach you social media. I know no one's got a budget anymore for social media, so let me teach you. And then I realized that from social media was that the people didn't know who their customer were. So they could be chucking money at social media and just kind of going, oh, well, my customer could be 20, 24, 48, 68. And I was like, you're wasting your money. So then I started to teach that and then stayed coaching for a long time and then realized that I didn't want to be behind the scenes. And so then I pivoted into, right, I'm going to be a speaker. I don't know what I'm going to speak about. Literally had no idea what I was going to speak about. I remember telling my friend, she's like, what are you going to speak about? I said, I don't know. But I know I'm going to be on that stage and I know that I'm going to be a speaker and I'll just have to work that bit out. And so it kind of went from there. So I think it's very much of that entrepreneurial thing of pivoting. So, well, when things are going wrong, you just can't give up. You just have to go, okay, how do I make this work? Where do I go with this? What's the next step?
Yeah.
And I think that's the evolution of the business.
How do you want to impact your audience and how do you want to be remembered? You have been doing a great
job. So when I first started speaking, a friend of mine had breast cancer. I put something on Instagram and she messaged me on Instagram and said, you just changed my life. This right in the beginning, just changed my life because I don't know who told me that I was going to feel ill for the rest of my life because of this breast cancer. She said, and I don't even know if it's me or my surgeon or society. She said, but just decided that's not going to happen anymore. And she's now having this amazing life. And that's when the first times that I cried, because I was like, oh my goodness, how is that possible that me just telling this silly story did that? If I can change one person in the audience to go, do you know what? It isn't impossible. I can do it. I just need to reach out my hand and someone will help me. If I can do one person in my audience every time I speak, then that's how I would want to be remembered. The sound's gone, Gary.
Yes. Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about your future plans? I know that you want to travel to 101 countries and I think
that's about a day off. I had a day off, the bank holiday, and the next day I'm like, right, what can I do to make sure that I stay focused on the speaking? So I set myself that challenge. I've got 3 so far kicked off. But
great. So in terms of the business also, do you plan to grow the business? Do you plan to integrate the business to other parts of the world? Can you share your thoughts with us?
So I definitely plan to grow the business. The group, the speaker group, is amazing, and the progress that people are making in there is my heart. I come off of that call and I think, oh my goodness, I literally see people changing. So I don't think I'd ever give that up. And the opportunity, it's a very low ticket offer. So this is the opportunity for, it should be 197. At the moment it's 97. So it's £97 a month and they get coaching by me. They've got a WhatsApp group that they can talk in. They've got the community, got these virtual stages. So that can grow and grow and grow. And I will bring in speakers. I've been bringing speakers in to to kind of tell their story and for them to see different styles. And so I would love for that to grow because it's affordable. I think just as a community, I see people, I've got some people in that group that used to speak and sell from the stage, or they've learned that speak and sell from the stage, and I've broken them, for want of a better word, and got their actual stories out and their passion. And, you know, the group's been crying because this person's got such a story. And then they suddenly start speaking and attracting clients to them, and so that's just amazing. Like, it thrills me. It's just one of those things that just like excites me so much to see somebody being their true self. So from that point of view, the one-to-one coaching, again, I love it, but that is limited. The one-to-one coaching, I only take, I think I would probably only take 12 clients a year. I would work with them for 6 months. And they would be the people that I'd be getting on the podcast, that would be helping to get on the stages, to craft their story, to get a show reel, probably to do a whole branding photo shoot, and actually make them into a speaker and direct them to a TEDx when the right TEDx comes along. And I would help them with their application and help them all the way through the process. So that's a massive thing that I do. And I put a lot into that, and I put a lot of my heart into it. And so it isn't something that I can do for 200 people. Not something that you can do. And obviously want the opportunity that when the speaking opportunities come, that I can manage my time and I'm not like a headless chicken. Today, for example, I had my second grandchild was born last night. So I've had the opportunity today to go and meet him at the hospital, and I've got a 5-year-old granddaughter. So I want to still be able to do that, because one of the things, when I was stood there and that car was coming for me, I didn't think about my business. I didn't think about the fact that I was a workaholic. Definitely never thought about a flat stomach. The only thing I thought about was my family. And so I bring myself back to that, to go, I need to build a business that is authentic, is successful, but allows me time for the people that are important. But otherwise, it's a wasted life. I'm still here. I'm on my second life. I can't waste it, on a spreadsheet.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. Some talking we will do off camera. Anything that we can do to help you to grow and scale your business, we'll talk some more about that. But I want us to talk now about, we're about to wrap up today's program. I know you want to travel the world. I know you want to, impact people in the world. How important is access to capital to help you in realizing that milestone of growing your brand and impacting the world with your story?
I think if you have access to investment or to capital, obviously speeds everything up. Everything can happen much faster. I spoke to a conference in California. They wanted me to go over there, but my budget to fly there and for them, even if I'd got to cover my expenses, didn't have it. But I know there would have been great people there that I then would have either got more stages out of. I'm part of the United Nations Women Committee, speaking to somebody about G100 this morning. So there's lots of stages where you can do good and you can talk to people. I like to balance out of going, some of the stages I get paid for and some of them that I'm actually just helping. And so if you've got that capital, you can make a difference a lot quicker.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
you can just speed the show up.
We will talk off camera in terms of some of the possibility. The last question that I want us to look at now is, what are essential money habits to have?
Oh, so essential money habits are, you have to be risky so you have to accept that there's an element of risk. I flew to Canada for my TEDx. They don't pay for a TED. I thought I was applying for London, UK. I went to Canada, London, Ontario. So I took a risk that I would go and that my TED would not be successful. That cost me a couple of £1,000, combined it with a holiday, but it changed my life. So in terms of a money mindset, I'm not talking about risk. So I would never buy a business or set up a business and go, we need cards, we need paper, we need pens, we need printed mugs, we need all the fluff. I would set up a business and I would sell a product, and then I would go and find the stuff for the products. And I did that with the Speaker Academy. It's like, had a product, asked people if they're interested, they were interested. I built the assets around it. Coming from the hairdressing background, God, we made some mistakes when we first opened that hair salon. We had like white leather chairs in hairdressing, mad. White leather chairs, and you're putting hair dye on people. But we were more interested in what it was going to look like than they were. And we were interested in the experience of the customer than we were in the marketing. So in how we got the customer. So I think, in terms of money situations, you have to go, how am I going to get a customer? What does it cost me to get that customer? How can I work that in? How many people do I need to speak to get that customer? So, you have to know your numbers of what it's going to cost you to acquire. a new customer. But then you also have to sometimes go, I'm going to take a risk. What's the worst that's going to happen? So you have to be sensible but adventurous at the same time, which I know sounds like a contradiction in each other, but it's about valuing the right thing. I don't have any value on paying thousands for a website. I will be a mobile phone and a spreadsheet or something very simple systems. I don't have lots of value on a big logo. When I had Spa, I didn't have a sign outside, and we booked 6 months in advance because the old people, we took their sign down, and we used the deal size. We used like Groupon and all those type of things to fill us up, to get our customers, to get the database. That didn't cost us 100,000 to put a sign on the wall outside because those people were coming anyway. So it's just what is the return? So if you're spending something, what is the return that it's going to give you? Not spend something. What's the return you're going to get on a pen that's got your name on it? Not really. I don't think I've ever bought anything from a pen that someone's given me. Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, "Oh, well, but it's awareness and stuff." But I've never bought anything. Pens from everywhere. Go to an exhibition, I'll go over 100 pens, but has any of those ever actually turned into a sale?
You mentioned some important things, in doing a business, there's what we call the customer acquisition cost.
Mm-hmm.
And you find very often that rising stars in business, you disregard that. Very often they don't fully understand the real cost of actually doing business. And but you understand this, and I love what you would have said. Debbie, but that was the last question. But just before we wrap up today's program, is there anything that you want to say that I might not have asked you? I want to give you the chance to say it now.
I just want to say to anybody that's listening is you can literally do anything that you want to do. If you really, really, really want to do something, then there isn't a no. It is just go and find the person who's got the yes, who's got the answer for you. You might have to kiss a lot of frogs to get there. But if you believe that 100% that there is a yes, that what you want to do exists and is important enough to you, then you will achieve it. And no one can stop you.
Well, I love that, and I totally agree with you. And I really trust that the audience today that's going to be listening to this program, you found tremendous wisdom in what Debbie would have said. Debbie is a well-accomplished public speaker, and I have no problem in endorsing her as a key person for you to connect with, to build your keynote speaking skills and your public speaking skills. Debbie, I also want to, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. I want to thank you for spending some time with us today. I know that this is the first interview that we would have had, but definitely not the last, because I know that you have so much more to share. And I would love to open up this platform to you to give you an opportunity to get your message, your story out to the audience.
We'll definitely talk about that. I guess I just believe that everyone is entitled to a big life and no one should have to compromise.
Exactly.
I don't intend to, and no one else should have to. So I get that's the ethos really, is that everyone should have this big life, whatever that means to them.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Pitch Deck 101 LLC out of New York do more than just support our clients to pitch their businesses to investors access working capital at 0% APR. We also support our clients to grow and scale their businesses faster and cash flow optimize. Pitch Deck 101 LLC recent partnership with 10X Branding Marketing LLC and Global Capital Inc. out of the USA has enabled us to form unique partnership with multiple financial institutions, which means we can do even more to accelerate the success of our clients. Let Pitch Deck 101 LLC give you the support you need to pitch to investors, access capital, access new markets and grow and scale your business. Contact us now on 332-235-1099 for a free consultation.